Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 257 Better on Draft podcast. It looks like we do not have our guest here in studio yet, so we wanted to come on and start with the news of this week. Let's go around and see what everyone's drinking real quick. For myself, I've got from the Great North Ale Works, Marzen Rover Amber Lager, and coming in right behind it, I've got, oh my gosh, it's like Grünhopfen Stick Geron. It's an alt beer.
Fair.
It was the only alt beer at the beverage store that I went to in Maine, I believe I was in. And I just said, "Hey, do you have any alt beers here?" And he said, "I know of one." And it was the guy who manages all the sales of beers, because the counter people did not know what an alt beer was, which is fair. Not a very common style. But with that, Wendy, what are you drinking?
I have got the Oscar Blues Death by Coconut, one of my favorite porters out there. I can't beat anything with coconut in it. I love it. And I also have the Can O Bliss IPA, which is the resinous IPA. It's supposed to be a mix of the West Coast style and the hazy styles.
I love the coconut stout from Griffin Claw. I can't think of the name of it. It's off the tip of my tongue. It's got a weird name. It's actually it's a porter too. It's I think it's called You Figure It Out.
And yes.
It's easily one of my favorite beers. Rob, what are you drinking over there?
All right. First time I had that one, I did not like it, but then it just, I don't know, it somehow got better. Maybe there was something wrong with that particular can.
It grew on you. I had a double dwarf last week. And if you remember my reaction to Double Dwarf the last time, it was not good. But it has been 5 years, I think 4 years since I've had it, and it was pretty tasty. I was excited to drink it, and I drank it all by myself.
You hated that beer. But right now, what I am having in the old Greg glass, I found a can of Eastern Market Brewing's Contra Derby, which has been sitting somewhere for the last 4 months. So having that sucker, nice little stout. And on the side, in my no rules glass, got a little bit of the Bernheim, a little wheat whiskey to kind of suck it down.
I am definitely still going through all my vacation beers I purchased. Actually, someone in this chat room just came back from a nice little trip. Wendy, where were you? And talk to us about the festival you went to.
So we went to the Above the Clouds Festival at the Brahamery Brewery in Asheville, North Carolina. It was fantastic, man. We never felt like it was overcrowded. We never waited more than 2 or 3 people deep for beer. The beer was amazing. We thought it was going to be just a hazy IPA fest, and they had some of the best barrel-aged stouts that I have had in a long time. They were so delicious. They had a whole bunch of different breweries that were there, and it was just a really good time.
Awesome. And you said there was a special thing that they did over there?
Oh, they had metal cups. It was so awesome. They're tasting cups. We didn't have to worry about anybody dropping it and breaking it because they're glass. We didn't have to worry about the plastic cracking. And then because it was warmer out, when they poured the beer into the metal cup, it was so nice and cool. It was just, we like metal cups. We think that more people should do that.
Well, let's get into it as we're still awaiting our guest. So
here is Robert with the beer news.
That's right, it's Robert with the beer news. I'm actually going to go to Wendy first, because Wendy, right before the show started, was super excited to talk about a certain thing that just came out. Obviously, you've seen the clickbait articles going around everywhere. There is a beer that is illegal in 1,800 or 1,700 states. So, Wendy, talk to us. Utopias 2021.
Utopias announced their beer for this year. That's going to be available starting October 11th The 12th biennial is that I can't even say it talk today. Edition of the Utopias was finished on 2,000 pounds of cherries, including Michigan Balaton cherries, to bring a slight sweetness and touch of tart flavor to this 28% ABV rarity. I was just really excited that they used Michigan cherries. I think it's fantastic. At $240 a bottle, I'm not 100% sure if I'm ever going to buy a bottle. I have gotten to taste it at great taste. What about you guys? Would you ever do that?
Well,
I got the
go-
opportunity to try it at a World Expo of beer, where we got very limited amounts. Simply because they participated in World Expo of Beer. They did not make it in their category, but whatever was left, obviously a lot of the super beer nerds that were helping pour the beers were the first ones to go try to sneak some, as well as some of the tasters wanted to try it too. So it definitely got around, to say the least. I don't think I'd ever pay that much money to for an ounce of beer or a bottle of beer. My theory, and my friends laugh at me all the time, is when I take something seriously, is if I've ever bet more on a hand of blackjack, then it's not a gamble for me. So whether it's a beer, a bottle, or something like that, I have yet to bet that much on a hand of blackjack. So it is still too rich for my blood. Rob, what about you?
I think first the one thing I'm always just kind of annoyed with is the article that comes out every 2 years because they make it sound like it's the first time that this beer came out. Like every time it's this beer that's being released is banned in so many states. I mean, okay, yes, it's banned in I think it's what's 15 states this time. I don't know if that number has increased from 2 years ago, but I have not had a chance to try it. I do know of some people who have a bottle or bottles. Uh, Looking at you, Wayne, uh, that
Wayne,
I
how
might
you doing?
might have to stop by and take out that quote unquote invite that he has out for other people and get over there and try that. But I mean, yeah, the price tag is high, and 240 is MSRP. It seems like when I see it in the stores want 300 or 325. So you're paying even more.
Well,
And
that's
if you
that's
get
why you're seeing it in the stores, is because they didn't sell it for the MSRP and nobody's going to pay
Mhm,
that premium.
right. So I mean, if you have a bunch of people who want to go in on it, then that takes a bit of the bite out of it. As long as you've got, let's just say you've got 10 friends and all of you are going to do a share at somebody's house where everybody gets a sip of this, then I don't see the problem with it. I mean, paying essentially 25 to 30 bucks per person is essentially, if for meat drinkers out there, I mean, you talk about going to Shram's when the tasting room was open and you wanted a 1 ounce pour of Heart of Darkness, that was 30 bucks for 1 ounce. So, I mean, if people are willing to pay for that for mead, people are willing to pay for that for utopias. It's just, like I said, as long as you have a group of people, then that takes a bit of the bite out of it. I mean, I don't feel like for something that's going to be 28%, I'm drinking that by myself or even just doing that with two or three people. I want a large group to share that with and to have that large group pay for it.
And
So,
you know what, Matt in the chat, Matt Bush said it best, is that good luck finding it for that. It's already sold to their best customer. Ashley Price in the chat is saying that you can
yeah.
hang on to it for years. Yeah, it's either sold to the best customer, or that store owner is doing something special for a group of his best customers where he's selling it
Hmm.
and they're buying it and they're doing a tasting in the back room or after closing one night or something like that. Like most of these, because I mean, to get it, obviously not every store is going to get it, so the stores that are going to get it have the clientele of repeat customers, and that's just kind of how it is going to go. It's kind of like the Bourbon County. um, and let's say Bourbon County or Bourbon County variants, we'll say. Regular Bourbon County usually sits on the shelf for a bit these days, but when we're talking 2015, 2014, when people were chasing trucks still, and you're going to 6, 7, 8 stores a day just to try to find a Bourbon County, like those, yeah, but that was also because a lot of stores that didn't understand what they were getting. Well, they understood what they were getting, which was a moneymaker, but they didn't really appreciate what they were getting. There are so many stores where you see the Bourbon County and you see that it is, a $10 to $12 bottle, and they're trying to sell it for $30. And you're like, this is just regular Bourbon County. To be honest, I'm hoping, and I got to reach out to him, that Ryan over at Three Nicks is doing their 2-year vert. Because what they do, if you're unaware, Wendy, just because you haven't been on the show since we've been there to do it, they do 2-year vert, 10-ounce pour of each, $20. It's a ticketed event, and you have a 1-week span to go. So you don't have to go at a certain date or a certain time. You have a certain date range, but you don't have to go on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock to know that you're going to get it. You can go whenever you want. Usually we go when there was a Lions game or some type of football or something like that, and we just show up. We give them our tickets. We get 2 10-ounce pours, and that's it. Like, you're paying for that convenience, which is nice.
But the one thing I'm actually hoping for is that you get a hold of our guys over at Goose Island to see if we can get some more media bottles only of this year's releases.
They did say to contact them.
I know. I gotta contact a lot of people.
So real quick before we move on, though, I did want to point out that Sam Adams is the official beer of the Inspiration 4, and the first all-civilian spaceflight mission that just happened. But in celebration of that, Sam Adams is willing to donate a maximum of $100,000 to support Jurek Isaacman's challenge to raise $200 million for St. Jude. To extend the support of the cause, Jim, I can never say his last name right, Coke is offering his personal bottle number 1 of 2020 Utopias, signed by himself and the Inspiration 4 crew, and a trip to the Sam Adams Boston Brewery for the St. Jude Charity Buzz auction. To learn more about that auction, go to stjude.org/launchparty. I just wanted to bring that out.
No, that's great to have. We'll have that in the show notes for sure. Speaking of Sam Adams and Boston Beer Co., there is another Sam that is involved with Boston Beer Co., and that's Dogfish Head, because obviously Sam Adams, Boston Beer, owns Dogfish Head.
Mr. Caglione.
There was a panel that Sam was on over the past week. It might have been during Craft Brewers Conference. I don't know for sure. But according to Sam at Dogfish Head, if you were to look at the top 100 IRI-defined craft SKUs, most of them are from the 90s, meaning a person that just turned 21 saw their parents drinking these beers growing up. He says that breweries have begun to refocus brands like Fat Tire as an outdoor brand, as their IPA Voodoo has overtaken Fat Tire as their number 1 seller. Appealing to every drinker is ideal because every drinker has a list of styles they prefer, but innovating and creating is still necessary, but doing so incrementally is what Sam believes in. He gave the audience a bit of information that the 60, 90, and 120-minute IPA makes up more than half of their sales. Just those 3 beers. Where can local breweries grow from here while your standard, hazy, and imperial IPA are still king? This is going to be definitely the trend for this episode after the Sam Adams Utopia part. So we're going to start with Wendy. Where can breweries grow from here?
Oof.
Before I answer that, that's a really tough question, because I think we've been saying it all along that they need to. I think more people are looking right now for this classic styles. They want standard beer styles that, the traditional styles. I think more than the hazy ones right now. I think people are starting to get a little bit tired of that. But I would like to make one point about the Voodoo. You can get those in the Tall Boys cans at your local 7-Eleven. So, of course, that it went above Fat Tire because you can pick up one or two on your way home from work. And that's what I would have done as a college kid. That's just my point on that one.
I am not one to normally grab tall boys of craft beer. It's a very weird thing for me. Like I feel like tall boys are always reserved for a lager or now a seltzer. Um, I don't I don't normally grab a tall boy of like, and I've seen like Oberon. I
Not
think.
now,
Oh, not now.
not now, but the people that that's marketed towards are picking it up on their way home from class or whatever. You know, that's just my opinion. Of course, Voodoo took a rise on that one because it's available in something that's super easy to get. You can get it at any local store and it's right next to your Budweiser. So if I have a choice between drinking Voodoo and drinking Budweiser, that's what I'm going to pick.
Well, while you were talking, real quick, Nicholas came in, and hello, Nick. How are you, and what are you drinking?
Nicholas.
I am so tired right now.
When aren't you?
Well, as everyone probably knows on the show, I work for a certain utility company, and the summer's been non-existent outside of work. That and finishing my basement. So needless to say, average 12 to 16-hour days, pretty much all summer. So I am drinking my Sierra Nevada Wild Little Thing right now. I was actually contemplating going NA and started drinking 2 Roots, but then I'm like, you know what? Summer's almost over. Let's go with the sour. So.
All right. Well, to catch you up, we're talking about craft beer needing a refocus and incrementally increasing their innovation. So I'm going to pass it over to Rob, though. Rob, what's your thought? Can local breweries grow from here? And while the standard is still the standard IPA, hazy IPA, imperial IPA being king.
I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like, kind of going with Wendy's point in the beginning was that, I kind of want a reset. I want to kind of back off from all of the adjuncts and all of the barrel aging, despite the fact that barrel aged beers are like my favorite and have been my favorite for a long time.
That was not my point.
Well, I know. Well, you were part of that. What you were saying was about, beers going back to a little bit back to the roots. But just saying that, I kind of want them to go back to, as I like to say with PBR, I like to go back to beer flavored beer. I want to go back to the standard IPAs and the standard, nobody really messes with Dunkels or Hefeweizens too much. But there's a lot of, things that get thrown into beers, as Matt likes to, vehemently, discuss, is anything that gets thrown in a Kolsch.
That was last week too, where I believe Travis the 3 people here were not on that episode. But as Travis and Zach from Old Nation and Urban Rest were talking about it, like those aren't Kolsches. Like there are very specific rules to be a Kolsch, and when you add an adjunct, it's not a Kolsch anymore.
Right. And it's a tough ass question. I don't know. I honestly just don't know.
Well, you know who thinks he knows, saying he can hop in here. I was trying to give him a break since he came in a little bit late, but Nick, you think you know. What's up?
I think back to the Summer Brew Fest before COVID started, when I think it was 2019 is one that we went to. And I think it was New Holland's Dragon. It was New Holland Dragon's No Triple Mash. And when I had that, I asked myself, what in the world is going on with this? And then I came to the realization that I feel like breweries are just trying to just push that limit as far as they to basically where they get to the edge of the cliff before falling. But that never ever comes, I feel. So I think a reset is probably not a bad idea. Like, for example, I went to Royal Oak Brewery last Saturday. Ken, you were there for my birthday, and I had nothing but English miles the entire night while I was there. I could not have enough of English mild. Nothing special, just a plain old English mild. Something that's, I don't know if it's really true to style. I don't know if they tried to brew it with intent true to style, but
Jeremy
if it
over
was,
there is someone that I would love to get on the show. Jeremy is such a smart brewer. And you want to talk about like their Saturday afternoons when they do their Kolschin hour. Like that's a full production that they do over there, and they do great. They do great stuff with the true styles. They had an English mild, they had an amber, and they had an alt beer. I was in heaven.
So I think to kind of maybe if I can push Rob in the direction of answering the question, I think a reset is needed. I think it is needed. I think we need to kind of, see if we can go back to seeing if we can start going back to true to style on some of these just for a bit. Just reset the stage of it.
Your incremental innovation is to blow up the entire industry and start over.
That's what every evil genius in most movies want.
Why not? Why can't I be an evil genius? Why can't I be like Dr. Evil in Austin Powers for one night? Why can't I do that?
I think the problem is that we've already gone past the point of no return. We have so many beers with adjuncts. We have seltzers. We have NAs. We have gluten removed. There's like so many different varieties that are out. Even some of those can go and kind of bring back those flavors. But I guess just let me throw out all those other like variables I just threw in there, and just like looking at just the beer as a whole, I feel like we have so many different varieties of how. Not only in style, but just in adjuncts. I mean, I was kind of hoping, like, hopefully if Oscar Blues comes on, I wanted to talk about the mustard beer. Like, who thinks of throwing mustard?
Stop. Oh, mustard beer. Okay, so I think
it goes well with the shock top pretzel beer.
Well, Well, first and foremost, the shock top pretzel beer was actually pretty good.
No, I don't care.
I don't care what any of you people say. I thought that was a good beer, and just like our sponsor, North Center Brewing out in Northville, Michigan, says, if you think it's a good beer, then if you like it, then it's a good beer.
I feel like they need to adjust their slogan to "If you like it, as long as it's not shock top pretzel."
Oh, whatever, dude.
Beer.
So Rob, okay, let's keep this going. So you mentioned the seltzers and the NAs. Are those really just trying to push the line of craft beer, or are you catering to a certain market by those? Because we have people, the gluten-free, the NA, the seltzers. Some people just drink nothing but seltzers. Some people are recovering alcoholics, or they don't want to drink beer. They want to drink NA beer.
Maybe they just want to take a break.
Or they just want,
take a break. Yeah.
So I mean, if it's, from those, you're catering to those particular audiences. If we're just talking about craft beer as we know it with the New Englands, the hazies, sours, things like that, is it? Yeah, I suppose you're right. Maybe we are at the point of no return. But at what point is there a certain point that we could we'll just topple over the cliff and then craft beer just sinks and then we're going to be forced to restart at that point? Is there
probably
somewhere?
This is probably something like when we had what was it, Bart Watson, the economist over at the BA.
Mm-hmm.
It's about watching. It's like anything from looking at stocks. It's watching the trend lines, and if the trend lines start to go down for all of these different styles, then that's something that like Bart at the BA is going to look at, and hopefully breweries, if they have access to the information, is going to look at and say, well, shit, NEs are starting to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, alts are going up. So hey,
Right.
we need to start going out. We need to start making more alt beers. We need to start making more browns. We need to start making more dunkles. So
I know you're saying this just to make me very happy,
So-
but you don't have to say it. But
All right,
I want to go for it. Yeah.
I was going to ask one more question, and then okay, if we just let the beer industry just topple over that cliff and fall down on its own, do you think self-imposing a reset would be better than letting the industry fall down on its own?
I don't think you're going to stop like.
I agree.
You're not going to stop IPAs. You're not going to stop people who want IPAs. You're going to attract a lot of people who are looking for those styles and who are looking for that kind of craft beer scene, but it's going to be few and far between. I think it's going to bring down a little bit, because what's happening, and we talked about it with a few different guests, is that breweries are soon, and very, very soon, are going to be your local pubs now. Because not too many breweries are going to start distroing anymore. And if they're distroing local, and they're distroing draft only. These breweries are really confining to where they're going to brew, and they're going to brew to a very limited amount of people, and people will come visit them because they're a brewery. They'll use things like the Michigan Brewery Map app, which, if you are a faithful listener and you do have the Michigan Brewery Map app, but you're not a big, nice cell phone user, the Michigan Brewery Map app is now on Google Maps. And you can go to it by going to mibeermap.com. So head over there, and you can build your own brewery tour using the map app over there. But I want to talk about a reset that happened with a brewery nearly 16 years ago. Because 16 years ago, Allagash, which is out of Portland, Maine, was distributed into 26 states. And since then, as of last year, it has dwindled down to 16 states. A lot of local states, close to the New England area. But they have grown from 20,000 barrels to 100,000 barrels. So 5 times the amount. This place is massive, by the way. If you're ever in Portland, this is a great place to to end a brewery tour, because there's that brewery, and then there's across the street 4 breweries, all within walking distance. And when I say walking, I don't mean stumbling in the city of Asheville where you can get from brewery to brewery. I mean literally you could see people on the patio of the other breweries. So that's how close it is. So either start your day there and finish your day there, or end your day there and just go to this area. But what they did is that they really confined, they got out early because they figured out that, hey, craft beer is starting to explode. There's a lot of competition, and if you don't have the people selling in these different areas, you're going to be stuck losing. And this is a brewery that doesn't rely on their IPA. Their top 2 brands are a wit beer and a triple. So how do they go within the system itself? Because when we think New Belgium, we still think Fat Tire. That's the first thing that comes to our head.
Yeah.
But as the competition of craft beer being crazy here in Michigan, let alone with the states, how are these breweries that have the distribution capabilities going to be entering into these other states? And I really don't think it's dropping another IPA. Maybe you can get away with dropping an IPA, but I think you need to show something that nobody's seen before. And it's crazy to think nobody's seen these standard styles too often. That's the hard thing, is that nobody sees these styles. So when Allagash comes back in, what do we know as wheat beer here in Michigan? Oberon, Blue Moon. Is there another?
Yeah.
Is there a local wheat beer that I just really can't think of? Wango over at Atwater.
Atwater is amazing.
It's not craft beer though, Wendy.
For God's sake.
It's owned by Molson Coors.
Anyways, I like the Wango mixed with Final Absolution. Actually, it's a fantastic little beer cocktail.
Well, at that point, I'm gonna ask them to make a mango Final Absolution, a mango triple. Is it a triple then? If you do, is that the same rules as the Kolsch? You can't fuck up a triple like that?
When I'm at Dragonmead, though, if they have I think it's Bright Castle, their apricot wheat.
Castle Bright.
Castle Bright.
Yeah, Castle Bright.
I will mix those two because those are amazing together as well.
Castle
Love
Bright.
both beers on their own, but the apricot wheat and the Final Absolution at Dragon Mead mixed, amazing.
Damn. Okay, something else to try. Beer cocktails by Wendy. We need to have this whole segment of now just talking about beer cocktails and what beers to mix in the local area.
Matt says something in the chat, and I think it kind of re-hones in what I was talking about for the local industry, because Royal Oak Brewery obviously doesn't distro because they are a brew pub. Dragon Mead does, but again, when people go to Dragon Mead, they're going either for the experience, or the fact that they've been going for years, or like because they are true to style brewers, but they also have the ability, because they've been doing it for decades now, of just brewing. How many beers are on tap when you go there? 50? Like, and it's all their beers, and it's all like really, really good beers. And that's going to be the type of brewery you're going to need to have for a local establishment, because who's going to, well, mind you, there's Dragon's Landing, but who's going to the 696 off ramp onto Grossbeck? And if you mess up and you pass Dragon Mead, you got to go down Grossbeck, around, come back. Like, it ain't an easy place to find.
I screwed that up at least 3 times. But it was worth it.
I always found the fact that breweries are so difficult to find part of the appeal, in my opinion. I like searching out the different breweries, and the fact that the Uber drivers are like, I don't think I should drop you off here. And we're like, no, I can see the entrance through those 2 buildings down that alley. You know, that both of those things have happened, by the way.
I think Downey in Dearborn here in Michigan is probably one of the toughest ones to find. But once you get there, it's an experience for sure.
If you haven't been to Downey since COVID hit, they definitely have popped the front of their building, so it's pretty easy to find now. With like, I remember at the beginning potentially having driven by it, but now it's a very easy thing to spot, for sure.
That's good.
They're, as a continuation to kind of these stories. You know, there's another brand that we've talked about, and I'd love to get on the show. But Shiner is releasing their 1909, which is a nod to the year they began brewing. So they are 112 years old. You know, Shiner's been brewing since 1909. They actually didn't even make their first IPA until after brewing for 100 years. They've created their own footprint brewing box, pills, lagers. Like, I loved Shiner Amber, and it sucks that it never really distroed out of Texas, and that was my thing when I would always go down to Texas, is to get Shiner Amber. But they've done this without relying on an IPA to pad their sales, I'll say, as they are the number 5 craft brewery by production. As with what we've talked about earlier, we saw New Belgium's Voodoo, Lap Fat Tire, Dogfish Head's Minute Series as half their sales. Do you guys think a new brewery could succeed in today's market without one of the heavy hitter sales beer styles? And when I say those, I'm talking hazy IPA, Imperial IPA, without having obviously been in the industry for 100 years.
I guess define survive. Are we talking about just within the community, or we're talking about potentially doing some sort of like mid-level distribution?
I'm talking a brewery to explode into distribution.
Gotcha. All right.
Could a brewery get to the level of let's go locally, and let's not even go one of the top few. Let's say Oddside level, New Holland level, Shorts level. Do you think a brewery could get there without an IPA? Because when people talk about the next big thing of beers, when was the last non-IPA next big thing of beers? When was the last next big thing of beers?
My thing is with Oddside, they got more SKUs than J.C. Penney. So I mean,
yeah, I don't have an answer to when was what was the last next big thing that wasn't an IPA. I mean, unless you want to count all the seltzers that are out there right now.
No, I'm
Oh,
talking like
jeez.
beer,
But
not beer flavored beer, but you know what I mean, like actual beer.
I know what you
Yeah.
mean. Um, yeah, I do think that they could, because it's really a lot of times when breweries blow up the way that we've seen them blow up, it's not just about the beer. It is about the culture. It is about the way that they get people brought in and how they make their people feel. It's marketing, 100%. It's the way that you feel when you're in that brewery and how you want to share it with everybody else, because
Their
that's how you get your
uniqueness.
name out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and say no. You can't survive without any of those. To be honest, I think people who enjoy craft beer, from the casual drinker all the way to the connoisseur or the CBYs, they expect you to at least have one of those on tap at any given time. Whether it's a hazy, whether it's a New England, you got to have at least one. Otherwise, I mean, and remember when we started saying people will judge you if you buy your New England IPA or just regular IPA. Remember when we've had those conversations?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost given that you have to have at least one of those now. People expect it. At least that's my opinion. People expect that you have to have at least one of those on tap at any given time.
Well,
Is
I
it
mean,
because they have to have that, or because they want a wide variety?
I think people like wide variety. Whenever I go to a brewery, I like variety. When I went to Dragon Mead for the very, very first time, that was my introduction to craft beer. I was astounded by the variety that they had. I don't remember how many taps that they had at the time. This was forever ago. I'm not sure if it's still the same, but I mean, it had to have been at least 15 to 20 different taps. And that's what I like about craft beer, is the variety of different flavors, the things you can do with different styles. I mean, who would have thought that you could put jalapeno peppers in a beer and call it a beer? I mean, that again, that's what turned me on to craft beer, is the variety. And I think people like variety. And I think if you don't have that level of variety in your first set of, 10 tap handles on your opening day, or 8, whatever, then I think, people might get turned off by that. That again, I'm just personal opinion. Variety, it's my thing.
Ken, where you gonna go?
I mean, I think a
Where
lot
you
of
go?
people, the way people are saying that they're going to go to a brewery, like the way that I expect when I go to a brewery to see, a couple of dark beers on draft, I think a lot of people expect to see IPAs on draft. I think it's different people, same mentality when you go. Like I could only imagine if, and I don't know if the Rob even had an IPA, but I can only imagine somebody showing up to the Rob and looking for an IPA and just not being able to get one. There are looks like a couple people that are watching us live over on our Twitch channel. Thank you so much, Bites, for joining us. Guys, we're live Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, facebook.com/BetterOnDraft or BetterOnDraft.tv, either of them. The Better on Draft TV goes to our Twitch TV, which our Twitch TV name is Bod Podcast, to check us out. I literally have been racking my brain for the past 5 minutes trying to think of the most taken off beer that was not an IPA, or let's say an imperial or pastry stout, and I can't even name one.
It's tough. I mean, and I guess kind of just like, I guess for my opinion on it, is it's kind of what Nick is saying, is that there's too many people that, I guess in my opinion, that are going to judge a brewery by their IPA or their New England IPA. And there's too few of people who we've had as guests on this show who will judge a brewery by their lager. And there's not enough where I think that's just it. There's just not enough people who are going to judge a brewery by another style. And therefore, just by that popularity, they're going to be looking for those IPAs, the New England IPAs. And I just don't see that a new brewery could survive without one of those, because as craft beer is concerned, we have enough of a problem as it is trying to get, the Bud and the Miller drinkers to come in and say, what's in here that I can drink, and then brewery has to figure out what they have just to get them to drink something. Never mind to get the craft beer drinker to come in there and there's not an IPA or a New England IPA, and I would think some of those people would turn around and leave.
I think that the breweries itself, like if you're making a pills, obviously other breweries judge breweries by their pills, lager, or kolsch. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the show. And I think that the problem is that pills is not a category that sells very well. It just doesn't sell in the public, and but it's a necessity while you're not necessarily pills like pills, kolsch, lager, clear beers. You need one of those for the people that are coming in because they're getting dragged to the industry. Every single brewery that I've gone to, and I can say this with confidence, every brewery that I've gone to has had one of those three beers on tap. I don't think I've ever been to a brewery that has not had a clear beer on tap. And that's because there's just too many people. More people still drink Miller Lite and Bud Light and Coors Light and Bud, and like too many people still drink that to not make that kind of beer for when those people come in, because that's still a huge population, and you're hoping to pull them in with that beer so that they drink other things, or they drink more of that beer, and you're making money instead of one grumpy person sitting at the table saying, why can we go to the fucking Moose Lodge?
Occasionally, you can pull them in. Actually, this past week at my day job, we had a work party, and I was responsible for getting the beer. One of the older guys gave me shit 2 years ago because I had decided to get it was both of them from Eastern Market Brewing, and I got the Market Day IPA and their Wonderboard Kolsch, and he hated both of those. So this year I got this time the Pineapple Market Day IPA for everybody who wanted
delicious.
I figured there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to want an IPA. And so I was like, let me give him an IPA that's not too overly bitter. That's an IPA. And they enjoyed it. And then for everybody else, because I work in the trucking industry, I have a whole bunch of guys who do nothing but like turn wrenches and do diagnostics. So I got a lager. And the guy who shit on the Kolsch 2 years ago, he was over there just like on like his fourth cup of a lager. And it was just like, yeah, you did it right this time.
I think more people would do lagers if they had the time and capacity to do lagers. Looking at Dearborn Brewing for the first time ever is making an actual true Oktoberfest as opposed to a Mocktoberfest is what they used to call it. Because they have the time. They have the time and capacity to do it. And not many breweries, especially small ones, have it, which is 100% fair as a reason to not have any type of lager on draft.
Yeah.
Just because if you're trying to keep up with the demand and keep up 8 taps or 10 taps or even 6 taps, like there's a brewery, the brewery out in Romulus, Artisan Reserve, like they're a 1-barrel system. And the guy who owned it, his partner passed away like at the beginning, and then COVID hit, and like all this shit is happening, and he's just trying to like stay afloat. I'm like, I gave him like such good props, and the beer was good. Like it wasn't anything to write home about. I'm not like, oh my gosh, if you fly into DTW, you need to stop here. But it was a great place to go. My problem with the place, and which I learned because of obviously the passing, was that they were just closed so much, and I couldn't get there when they were opened because they were only open, as much as the guy could work physically. If you can't work physically, then obviously you can't open. So we get that. But I appreciate the the hospitality when I went there, and I was able to check it out for sure. That's gonna do it for the news. We're gonna do the King of the Hill real quick. And then we're going to take a break. We're going to try to reach out to our guest to see what's up. Maybe he got the times crossed over because we are in Eastern and he might not be. Or he might read 7 Eastern and thought it was 8 Eastern, so maybe he'll be on hopping soon. But that's going to do it. Better on Draft, the news segment, 924. No matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.